more I think about King Viserys I's second marriage to Alicent Hightower, the more it leaves me scratching my head somewhat. We know that Rhaenyra was named Viserys' heir before the birth of a living son to him, thus naming her, given the other options he had, makes a lot of sense. But it becomes clear that even after the birth of a son to him by Alicent, in the form of Aegon, that Viserys has no intention of naming him heir over Rhaenyra, and it was always his intent for Rhaenyra to succeed him, whatever happens. But that then leads me to the question of this video. What was the point, and why the hell did Viserys even agree to marry again, when he knew there was a strong chance he'd have more children, and thus cause endless issues with the succession should that child be a boy? When Viserys married Alicent, he knew, should a son be born to them, there was always going to be trouble in regards to the succession, despite Rhaenyra being his named heir. There would be those in the realm who viewed the birth of a true-born son as the rightful heir. So, if Viserys was so intent on his daughter succeeding him, why did he remarry in the first place? I've had this question for a while, but it really popped up again for me as I've recently been making videos about his grandson, King Viserys II. What I find so interesting about him is his wife left him and his young children when Viserys was still a young man, and while we don't know the final fate of Lara of Lys and the whole truth of why she left, I do find it interesting that given his age and position, that Viserys II never remarried, even as a political means, even before he became the heir of Baelor the Blessed, let alone after, when he knew he would eventually become king should his nephew die. Yes, he had two sons by Lara, Aegon and Aemond, so the succession was fairly secure. He didn't need to remarry for the purpose of producing heirs, as by this point he had two sons, and even grandsons by this point. So why did Viserys II not even choose to remarry for political reasons? I can only see two real reasons for this. Number one, if Lara was not yet dead, then Viserys' marriage to a new woman would be questionable in terms of the polygamy aspect. And while Targaryen kings have married multiple women in the past, in some cases such as Maegor, there was a hell of a lot of backlash from the faith. While King Jaehaerys' doctrine of exemptionalism does allow incest for members of House Targaryen, I don't think that extends to polygamy. Thus, any new marriage without knowing for sure if Lara was still alive is questionable. But I do think that even if Lara was alive, the High Septon would be more than happy to annul the marriage, given the faith's dislike of Lara and House Rhaegar. So why did Viserys II not remarry? And how does this factor in to Viserys I? I think, because Viserys II was very politically minded, he knew full well that even if a second marriage was just a political move, the children born of that marriage could still potentially pose a risk somewhat to the succession, and could be used by factions at court to perhaps challenge the direction the crown fell. So this brings us back to King Viserys I. He named his daughter his heir, but the key difference is, even with Rhaenyra, the succession was far from secure. If something were to happen to her, Daemon by default would be the undisputed heir, which is part of the reason Rhaenyra was named in the first place. Thus you can understand the desire for Viserys to remarry and have future children to firm up the succession. The issue is, and the issue he should have foreseen, perhaps like his grandson Viserys II would, that the birth of any other children to Viserys via Alicent was always going to cause issues when the time came for the succession. He naively believed that everyone would just do as he said because he was the king. The fact he had sons in Aegon, Aemond and Daeron is an issue that Viserys should not have simply buried his head in the sands about and dealt with while he was alive. Now I see there being two core reasons as to why Viserys chose to remarry, despite the risk it produced to Rhaenyra's claim that he surely would have been aware of. From a political point of view, it made a lot of sense to shore up his allies, which is why key players such as Corlys Velaryon and Otto Hightower were pushing for their daughters to be his new bride. It's people such as Otto Hightower pushing so hard for Viserys to remarry, citing the political reasons to do so. In the early years of his marriage, without thinking about it critically and having a very optimistic outlook, it would have seemed to Viserys that he was securing the succession. Then you had the argument on the flip side of the coin, wherein Viserys should have been aware of the pitfalls and dangers it posed to Rhaenyra's claim by marrying Alicent. If he was that set and locked in on Rhaenyra following him, he perhaps should have nipped the situation in the bud and do what Viserys II later perhaps did, and not remarry at all, and maybe just have a mistress if he was that way inclined. If he was that sure on Rhaenyra being his heir, and her remaining so, he should never have remarried in the first place. But there is one crucial element to all of this that is very easy to overlook. We, as the readers, have knowledge of the wider context of events to come and events happening around him that Viserys would not. But more importantly than that, it's the human factor in all of this. As soon as Aemma Arryn dies, you have men such as Corlys Velaryon and Otto Hightower who were making plays to have their daughters become the queen. Advisors Viserys trusted had his best interest in mind, pushing these ideas to him. We also have to take into account where Viserys is mentally during this process, grieving not just the loss of his wife, but also his son, something we know he had longed for years. He was likely in a mentally very bad place. So when you have a situation where a young, beautiful, smart girl such as Alicent is being strategically placed in front of you, it's very easy to fall in love. And well, in a lot of cases, love makes sense fall out of the window. He very well might not have been thinking about the bigger picture at all, being blinded by his grief and love of this new woman. I truly do believe that if Viserys wanted Rhaenyra to follow him on the Iron Throne, come what may, no matter what happened in the future, him choosing to remarry and having more children, sons most of all, with an equal if not better claim to the throne than Rhaenyra, was a very short-sighted move. If he was that intent, maybe he should never have remarried in the first place. But it is important that when we talk about this concept and the issues surrounding it, we look at the wider political context as well as the emotional context of Viserys, and thus the choices he made during this time kind of start to slot into place.